Howdy, it's me again. Today I want to talk about some of the tools we use for knit and crochet. You probably recognize these. These are all knitting needles. And of course, these are crochet hooks. Now for brand new folks, a crochet hook is used by itself, just one hook, and it's got a notch. All of these are crochet hooks. I don't know if you can see that. These are all different sizes. This one is also, it's very tiny. Crochet hook. Crochet has hooks. Knitting has needles, and you need two of them. Here's a couple of cute ones. Got little sheep on them. These are DPN, what they call DPN, which is a double-pointed needle, so there's no ball at the end. Now, this is actually two different sizes. These are 8s and 9s. These are regular ones, a little bit bigger than these. And it's easier when you're learning to learn with these that have the ball on the end. These are circulars, which means the needles themselves are kind of short, but it has a wire of varying lengths in between them. And you've seen me use that when I was doing the knitting on my socks. So what you do is you have the length between them, and you just treat this as though it's the end. And when you go around in a circle, you just flip it around. And so that keeps you from having to go back and forth. Also, when you're making hats, socks, even scarves, you can go around in a circle rather than going back and forth. You can also use circular needles for going back and forth, but that's another day. Now, these are all different sizes for a reason. We'll go over gauge later on. What size is this? 11. So this is most of these are marked. This is an 8. It's marked right there. You can't see it. And this is an 8. And these are 8s, US 8s, which is, I believe, 5 millimeters. And this crochet hook, I'm sorry, 5.5 millimeters. This crochet hook is the same size as the 9s. So these are equivalent in terms of size, but they're used very differently. And the reason they come in different sizes is because sometimes you need a bigger stitch, sometimes you need a smaller stitch. This is one of many styles of stitch markers. You can use it to keep track of how many rows you've done, or where you need to start and stop, sections between cables, where the end of your round is on a hat or a sock, whatever. It's useful for a lot of things. I also use them when I'm casting on to help keep track of how many stitches I've actually cast on every 10 or so. And these are the diaper pin type, so you can take them out. Some are solid rings, some are dangly things with charms on them. They're all very useful. This is a stitch holder. Like if you're making gloves or something like that and you need to pull some stitches off, or maybe you need to retrieve the needle, you can put the stitches on here. You can put them all the way around. And again, it's very diaper pin-like. So you can keep them in, and the stitches won't, the whole thing won't fall apart while you've got the needle out of it. This is something that's important. This is just a little measuring tool. That's important. Doesn't matter what it looks like, what style it is. There are many of them on the market. This is a pair of snips. These come in many different styles. There's the disc kind that I think Clover puts out, where it's got a blade in it and it's very safety oriented. But you do need something to cut with. And this isn't necessary, but I like it because as you're going along, when you knit or crochet, you have the feed yarn going over one of your fingers, like this, even if it's on the other hand. And eventually this starts to hurt. So these, you can just clamp it in there. And these are movable and adjustable. And so as you pull on it, it's not pulling on your skin. It's actually meant to feed several different colors, but I use it for this. I also tend to use a thimble, especially when knitting, on this finger, because I tend to, as I'm knitting, I tend to push the yarn, the needle through the yarn. You don't have to, but when knitting, especially with smaller needles, it's easy to accidentally jab yourself in the fingernail, and it's really painful. Not so much with crochet because it's a hook, but these are, knitting needles are by necessity pointy, so save the fingernails. All you really need to start to knit or crochet is yarn, of course, and hands that are able to move around, obviously. There are ways to go around things if you only have one hand or usable, or, I don't know how you do it without, people can use their feet, I guess. So the ability to hold and manipulate the yarn and the tools is really all that's required. With that said, if you have that, you can knit or crochet. It's just a matter of learning how. One of the reasons I've called this playlist the ADHD way is because, when we start, we want to just learn, we want to get into a cool project, and then you start looking for patterns, and you find them, and there's a lot of them, and they're so cute. Oh my gosh. So those of us with ADHD, we tend to not finish what we start before we start something else. So this is what I call the ADHD pack. I have so many sets of needles, and a lot of them are in projects now that I have not yet finished. And I tend to forget about them and stuff. And so if you're like me, what you're going to want to do, rather than buying the really pretty, sets with the adjustable, you can take the hook off or the needle off and swap it out. What you probably want to do is get a wad of them in different sizes like this. That way you've got 2 or 3 for each size, and you're not going to have to hurriedly rip one out of an existing project to get another one started. It's a fact. I mean, I don't know that any yarn workers necessarily finish one project before they start another, but a lot of us don't, especially with ADHD, and there's at least 2 of every size, just about. And this happens to be from Knit Pal. I got it off of Amazon. Reasonably inexpensive and sturdy enough. This, you'll note, this is my longest pair of knitting needles, and they're 6.5, about 10 inches long. They have much longer ones in metal, and I recommend against those because when you're knitting, the work is out here. So if you're working on a sweater or a blanket and your needles are long, that puts the pressure out here, which can really put a strain on your hands. So I don't recommend using the big long ones. These are, again, about as long as I want to get. If you do need to use the really long ones because you're working on a blanket first thing, you want to have a place to rest the weight of your project. I prefer the circulars for that because it will, the weight of the blanket or whatever will rest on the cord in the middle, and you can put that on a surface, a table or whatever, so the only weight you're carrying is just this part right here. There are also many different styles of knitting needle and crochet hook, as you can see. This one, I don't even think I can get close enough for you to see the hook part. Maybe. It's very small. This is for the very thin, like Aunt Lydia's yarn stuff. This is for Bernat blanket and, size 5 and weight 5 and 6 yarns. It's big. Or if you want something very airy, you can use a thinner yarn with it, and your stitches will come out bigger. The goal being that your stitch should be the width of the barrel, whether it's a crochet hook or a knitting needle. Your stitch should end up this size. And these are in different sizes. Crochet hooks and knitting needles are measured by diameter. So this is a US 11, which is 6, 7, 8, like 8 centimeters, or 8 millimeters rather. Size 10 is 6 millimeters and so on. It's the cross section. Now they have a lot of, and I can't find mine, little templates that you can use to both measure gauge and also put your needle through to see what size it is if it's not marked. Most of them are marked. This is a 19 millimeter, which means across here it's 19 millimeters, almost 2 centimeters. You want to get some that are comfortable to work with. There are many, many kinds. They come in metal, they come in plastic, they come in wood, and there's pros and cons for all of them. Metal knitting needles tend to be slippery. Metal crochet hooks tend to be a little stronger than the plastic ones. I like the wooden ones myself. They feel good in the hand. They're flexible but also durable. So, point is, you're going to want to get something that's comfortable for you. How it feels in your hands, especially those of us who are neurodivergent, texture is everything. So you want to get yarn and tools that are comfortable for you, that don't feel icky in your hands. And you can get them reasonably inexpensively. If you're not allergic to wool, merino wool is really nice, but it can be expensive. There are blends that can be expensive. Acrylic yarn is the least expensive, and they do make it in various textures. Like this is the standard stuff. It's a little scratchy till you wash it a few times. This is a wool blend, and it's very soft. The trade-off is that acrylic is more durable, whereas wool, can wear out because it is an animal fur. Bamboo is wonderful. It's very soft, very flexible, and has what they call drape, which means it flows down. If you've got a shirt, like literally drape. So you want to be picky about your tools and about the yarn you're going to use, whether it's crochet or knit or any other, because touch is a thing. Texture is a thing. And so a lot of people get turned off because they don't like the way the thing feels. And I completely get that. So there are a huge variety of styles, types, textures. They have square knitting needles that are a little bumpy. They have little bumps on them. It really depends on how it feels with you. Your tools should not give you the ick, nor should the yarn. And there's enough variety out there that you should be able to find something that works for you. All you really need to start, though, is yarn and either a hook or needle. Because to start with, you want to make something very basic. So I almost forgot to talk about yarn needles. Yarn needles are what you use to tuck in the ends when you're done and sew it together and that sort of thing. And I have several kinds here. This is the standard steel yarn needle. It's blunt. Well, it's about as blunt as a knitting needle. So that's just pretty standard. These are the cheapest. They are ferrous, so you can put it on your magnetic holder. This is a wool needle. You can put much thicker pieces of yarn through this. They're a little more expensive. They are ferrous, I think, but they're flexible here, and so you've got a bigger hole. If you've got a size like 5 or 6 weight yarn, you can get it through there easier. I also have some other types. I've got this, and this is non-ferrous. This is aluminum, so it's not going to go well in a magnetic holder, but it's got a little bit of a bend at the end. The hole's a little bit bigger, somewhere between these two. So it's a little bit easier than this one to get in, and it's easier to pick up between the stitches with the bendy part, like that. If you were going to say weave it in or whatever, or sew things together, it's easier because you've got this little lift to get it in there. And these are a little more expensive. I think these are probably the most expensive, and these are the least expensive. It doesn't really matter Here's a plastic one. Definitely not ferrous. It doesn't really matter which one you use. It's more about your comfort, as are all the tools for knitting. If you have any questions, or if I didn't cover anything, or if it wasn't clear, and you need clarification, by all means, leave me a message or a note. Thank you.